Security Secretary could extend such protection on a temporary basis. A sponsor of the bill, Republican Representative Trey Gowdy of South Carolina, says increased terrorist threats and the greater mobility and youth of former presidents make the change necessary. The law authorizes Secret Service protection for the children of former presidents until they turn 16. The United Nations says the price of food is dropping worldwide, a sign that a global food crisis isn't as big a risk as experts had feared. Here's Charles De La Desma.
The UN agency is playing down fears of a looming world food shortage as international coordination and flagging demand have led to a drop in food prices for the third consecutive month in December. The food price index on the World-based Food and Agriculture Organization edged down to 21%, with drops in the international prices of major cereals.
I can get the good apartment that way. All my kids do. Come on. Get the good apartment that way.
Agency had warned the bad weather, including drought in the US, contributed to the unrest that hit parts of the developing world 5 years ago. I'm Charles De La Desma.
And with Iran, USA Radio News, I'm Hope Duggar.
What's on 4 after we got another minute?
Here's some great news from Tom Trento, host of the daily TrentoVision show. Due to the unparalleled success of the TrentoVision show, you now have an amazing opportunity to advertise on the TrentoVision show. If you want more information about this excellent opportunity for your business, please contact Tom Trento at 561-319-5533, or you can email him, tom@TrentoVision.tv.
Today.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff,
I gotta
management, or
actually dial
sponsors.
in at some point if I'm here for another hour, and the midnight
Welcome to TrentoVision,
need
where
like 20
bad
minutes before
ideas get
5:30.
polarized, and the truth will set you free. TrentoVision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-319-5533.
Normally, we would go out afterwards, have a drink.
TrentoVision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m.
I'm
on
showing us
AM
with Ben Gordon later
1470
tonight.
I got a throw in mine.
WNN and TrentoVision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at
Oh, I
Tom's
got a
beautiful
babysitter,
world.
too.
Here's
Do it all on
Tom
the radio.
Trento.
Kenny, hello. We're operating a little differently today on TrentoVision, particularly on the video side. Ladies and gentlemen, we're minus Mark and Mike. For those of you who follow this stuff, but we are still broadcasting a video signal through the magic of an iPhone. It is really amazing what can happen. But all the fancy cutting in and out and the videos and all that stuff, ain't getting that today. But we got a couple of Philly boys here for you.
They're really smart.
And they're smart, and they'll provide the entertainment. Do you guys sing by any chance? Or
Yeah, I do, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, where's a good karaoke bar here in South Florida? Someone call in with that information. I need a good place in Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach tonight. I'm not kidding, actually. I'm not.
What is your favorite karaoke thing? I mean,
It depends on who is there at the bar. It depends. Like, I was at a bar a few weeks ago, and it was a lot of, I don't like the term cougars, but everyone knows what I'm talking about if I say it, and they're great for karaoke. A lot of them are bitter or divorcees, and they're out to have a good time. No, I'm saying this in the best possible way, and it was a tough dilemma because I'm older than I look. I know your audience can't see it, but people think I look younger, but I love the pop music of the 80s. A lot of it also doesn't take that much vocal range. I highly recommend Abracadabra by Steve Miller, Dirk Commissar by After the Fire. And they know the music. Usually you go to like a bar in the places I like to go.
Oh, so they're in their 40s or whatever.
On Wednesday or Thursday, you can take for granted that they'll know, everyone knows Eye of the Tiger or whatever.
Yeah,
but
sure.
that's too much range, too high a voice
For you?
Yeah. But you can take advantage of it. I still went with like the cheapest, easiest way as of like January 2013. You just go with Call Me Maybe by Carly Rae Jepsen, and the whole crowd gets into it. I got to get Gangnam Style down a little bit. But that song and anything by Britney Spears, Toxic, works pretty well when a male does it in a low voice.
Adam Taxon, our Harvard-educated, Columbia-educated attorney, is a rock and roll karaoke guy. I want you to.
And Lady Gaga works really well
I
too.
hear any rock and roll in there yet.
I want you to blow out. I gotta go. You take over. I gotta go fix the camera. I don't know what he's talking
Someone
about.
call in with those karaoke songs. And I didn't mention rock and roll. I like some of the songs by Boston and Billy Idol. Does Billy Idol count as rock and roll? Because their voices somewhat in the same key as mine.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Billy Idol really works pretty well.
Yeah.
Except for dancing with myself, you have to sort of do a little dance by
I had the
yourself
wrong
for it to
thing
work.
on here.
You wouldn't have to be by yourself if you were in a karaoke bar.
Yeah, but it would be kind of weird if like you were using Dancing with Myself to try to pick up girls who were in the crowd and then start dancing with them. That would be kind of a contradiction.
They would flock up to you really quick.
I know, but it's still kind of inappropriate for that particular song. Get them to flock to you for another song. That's what Call Me Maybe is for.
Oh, okay.
You know, maybe Toxic by Britney Spears.
So
maybe
you've really
Bad
thought
Romance.
this out.
Oh, no, I did not do Call Me Baby. I did Bad Romance by Lady Gaga. And that hooks you up at the beginning. I'm killing time because Tom's fixing the microphone. Because with the everyone knows what that is at the beginning, and people sing along. The less you need to know the words, and then rah rah.
But not only do you...
This really feeds into your topic now, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yeah, delusion, narcissism.
Narcissistically.
Not
I'm too
only,
old for that.
Not only do you sing karaoke, but you do reviews for movies and plays and all that
No, I
stuff.
don't do movies. I do theater.
Just theater.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's only.
So you're an artsy
So
fartsy
you have
kind
a
of guy.
gay following too?
I don't think I have that much of a gay following, but it's not like. I mean,
Not that
welcome
there's
to the
anything
show.
wrong-
It's not
not
like
that there's anything
Well,
wrong
no, I
with
mean,
it.
it's the arts. It's not like I encourage that. It's not like it's in my face. A lot of homosexuals basically are in there, and that's fine. It's their job. I only have a problem if someone starts playing like, you know, in a very gay way, which means they're not getting in the role. They're not a great actor anyhow. Will from Oklahoma, or a really masculine character, Billy Bigelow from Carousel, if someone starts playing that in a really gay way, you know, that's kind of a little
it's
off.
off
It was
script.
interesting. I saw Anne Frank recently, and the guy was so flamboyant playing Mr. Dussel's, the sort of fifth wheel or whatever wheel in the apartment, the guy who didn't really fit in that they let in at the end, the Holocaust survivor. And he was just really gay. But I thought about it. I'm like, well, he was kind of an outsider, and he didn't really fit in. So there really wasn't a problem with it, because maybe that's the way he really was. I don't know. It seemed a little strange, but then it kind of made sense. Who knows?
About a little over a year ago, I decided to get a ticket as opposed to wait in line. It was summertime, I think. And when I got off the little boat and walked down the street and got to the building, the line went from there all the way around the block about 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a ticket, you go right to the little like will call thing and just walk right in. So I walked in, and probably took about 2 hours. And some of the, clearly, 2 of the most emotional and historic and powerful hours of my life, walking through Anne Frank's house in Amsterdam. Has anybody done that here?
No, I've been to Amsterdam twice, but I don't think I've ever done that.
Because the line is always, particularly when it's warm, the line is long.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go in, and I mean everything, you know, they're playing little videos, all this, and it is amazing. It is an amazing experience for anybody. I happen to be an evangelical Christian, and going through that whole thing and seeing what took place, and looking out the window, seeing where the German troops were, and the creaking of the floor, and you know where the storage place was downstairs. So you saw that play where? In Philly? It was in Philadelphia.
It was, who did that production? I'm blanking on the name.
It's everybody must get to the Anne Frank house if you can.
in Philly.
Frank
I
Hoos.
should have had that second coffee today. It's a good
Yeah,
group.
yeah, right.
They do a lot of
Organic
things.
gold.
I offered.
Yeah.
I offered.
Well, I don't know if they're listening right now, but I should know that I really need another cup of coffee.
Now,
But let me actually say something
Sure.
about, you know, people are like, oh, you're enthusiastic about theater, classical music, but it really ties into what you do. I happen to, you know, I guess there are some Jews who would spend all their time doing Jewish stuff. I happen to really like Western civilization. And you know what? When, you know, often I'll hear a song and say, if Islam takes over, this is over. You know, and it is consistent with that, because people want to destroy Western civilization, and that is a big
That's a
part
good
of it. And, you know, and people often
You made that
associate
point yesterday.
Yeah, I like culture. I like intelligent culture. I like beautiful things, and I find that Western civilization is largely great. I mean, it's deteriorated, no doubt, but it's provided quite a few masterpieces. And, you know, one other thing, I always get peeved when people say, aren't you into theater? Isn't that kind of a gay thing? And I say, no, I'm actually part of the subgroup that has contributed more to theater than any other subgroup in this country, being a Jewish male. So, you know, that's always my answer there. A straight Jewish male.
Hey, what?
A straight Jewish
straight
male
Jewish,
has
right.
contributed more to theater than any other.
Were you going to say something, Paul?
No.
Oh, okay. You said yesterday, because we normally deal with some very heavy subjects in here, but we make Jihad fun.
Mhm.
And what was your comment about? That's why we do this stuff. I mean, you've got to fight to enjoy life for Western civilization, where you can laugh, you can have enjoyment, and even when you're fighting these serious battles, and we get into some very serious stuff.
Well, I think I can't remember if it was a caller or who was with us yesterday.
Peter.
Peter was with us yesterday.
But it's very important.
Yeah, and somebody said something like, "Well, that's no laughing matter," or whatever it is. And I said, "You know what? If you don't."
Yeah, it is a laughing matter.
What are we
If
doing?
you don't laugh, you cry. I mean, that's how it is.
No. Why are we doing what we're doing? We're doing what we're doing because we want to preserve a way of life for ourselves, for the next generation, and the generation after that, if we fail to make it, to do it for ourselves. But we have a life that we want to live, that we're not willing to give up. If we're not going to live it, if we're only going to fight all the time, then what is the point?
Yeah, exactly. And that's your point with the arts and the classics and all of that.
Well, we're also very blessed. I mean, we're blessed because we have Europe as an example, which really shows us our Christmas future. I mean, very clearly. We know what 5 years from now will look like. All we have to do is go to France, go to Amsterdam, go to
Brussels, go to London. Yeah, of course.
I mean, you know.
It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And the mess.
Well, those people let God out of their lives entirely.
Yes.
And the vacuum it created let Islam
Oh, there's
in.
no question. All these issues that we talk about, whether we're talking about within the minority community or whether we're talking about Islam really coming in, when nations move away from a national identity, and everybody says, oh, nationalism is so bad, but when we move away, there's an innate desire of all people to have an identity. I was talking with Adam the other day about a book from Sharansky had written about our identity. We have to have an identity. And if we're not going to identify ourselves...
Tangible, definable...
And the better to have an identity which binds us, as an example, as Americans or as conservatives or however you want to say it. When we have a certain identity or patriots, then we have things in common, and there's philosophies and ideals. When there's a void of that, people's thirst and desire for identity comes in, and any strong ideological system has a chance to take over, which is exactly how it happened.
Well, yeah, that philosophical base or religious base has to be eroded, and in order for something else to come on it, we're going to touch on a subject of that in a second. But the threat of Sharia Islam or all these modifiers, militant Islam, political Islam, the threat is really the ideology of Sharia, which is the infused religious component of it. So the enemy that the West is fighting is basing its whole purpose on its religious call, its religious functioning, its religious attack. And on this side of the equation, we're dissipating that. I mean, the Jewish community, we had a rabbi in here the other day, and he's saying, most Jews are not religious, and many of them are atheists. Christian community, a lot of people are just blowing off a real vital belief in God. And it's just perfect pickings for the Islamic world.
Well, one of the problems in Judaism is identifiably when you become a Jew, as being Jewish, is that it's a birthright religion, as we talked about earlier. So simply being born a Jew, technically you go out into the community, you go out into the street, and if somebody says, hey, what are you? Oh, I'm Jewish. So even if you've renounced God your whole life, if you've never attended a service, you're still considered Jewish because it both serves as a race and a religion. Whereas if you're a Christian and you would never consider someone would never say, hey, I'm a Christian if they don't fundamentally believe in God.
Yeah, that's
just because they're last minute
conversation. What, 2 days ago?
2 days ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was the.
This is some of the stuff we talked about.
No, this is good because
so that's the problem.
It reinforces.
And that's where the identity should be. Look, when we talk about actual people, look, for instance, I probably have more social friends that are evangelical Christians than any other group because politically we agree the most.
Yep.
Well, and probably spiritually in a way
And
too.
In many
spiritually,
respects.
absolutely.
Unfortunately.
Because they have a thirst for, first of all, they have a thirst for knowledge about their religion. They have a compassion for Jews. They look.
But they have a love for God too.
Well, they love for God also. Even if we look in our religious doctrines, they've already agreed that it's divine, spiritually divine or divine, our Old Testament.
They being the Christians, evangelical.
Yeah, we're not
Christians.
arguing about the theocratic theology. There's no.
We argue over Jesus Christ. That's all
we can argue
over.
whether the Messiah came.
No,
whether the
you
Messiah-
always simplify that, but no, there's
but that
more
is
to
really
it.
there's really two
Well,
or
it's
three main
not that
points.
much
There's
different.
a lot more
We're
to
talking
it.
about did the Messiah come or didn't come, and we're talking about faith and works.
Exactly. Well, that's a good point.
Is our deeds going to get us into heaven? Is it something that we're doing? Is our behavior ultimately accountable? Or is faith alone good enough? And even within Christianity and Catholics...
Is choosing good enough? Is being part of the chosen people good enough?
Yeah, but what were Jews chosen for? Jews were chosen. I mean, let's if we talk about chosenness, chosen is we were chosen to bring the Torah to the world. Statistically, we failed in that. I mean, Jews are 16 million people.
Next.
Well, I think we were chosen for a little bit more than to show up 10 minutes before the end of services and eat cholent and various other goodies and see and interact socially with our friends for more than a half hour. And yeah, I'm mocking the synagogue I usually go to, but so what? They know I'll do that. And by the way, I just want to mention two other things. The theater that showed a great rendition of The Diary of Anne Frank, and I have a review if you Google my name, Adam Taxon and Anne Frank.
Taxon, T-A-X-I-N.
Is Egopo Theater Company, and that's EGOPO.org. I think in 2 months they'll have something related to Harry Houdini at play. And also I forgot to mention another group I do work for, besides the Daily Beck, is Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, and that Facebook page has been growing really quickly, and I encourage you to join it.
Jews for the what is it?
Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Oh, it's a real group.
You can't own any guns in Philadelphia.
Well, it's a national group.
Yes, you
it's
can.
an international group.
You can own a gun in Philadelphia and
Of course
not
you
be
can.
dragged away to some. You can own a gun in
It's not
Philadelphia.
New York.
Can you carry
Andrew
a gun?
Cuomo's not mayor.
Carry with a permit.
Oh, you can. That's right. You can get
Concealed
concealed weapons.
carry permit.
They allow you to in
Just
Philadelphia.
no open carry without a permit.
Oh,
It's not Arizona or Alaska or Wyoming or Vermont,
That's
believe it or
right,
not.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's,
Oddly enough, I live in the city, but I also have a farm outside of the city, and it's funny. I had a person visit me. My wife is from Russia, so a cousin came to visit, and was surprised. TVs, DVDs, all the equipment that you have in a house. It's only really a weekend house, and he's astonished. He says, "How do you have all this stuff in your house and nobody robs it?" I said, "There's about 100 million guns in the U.S.
Yeah,
Nobody knows which house has them."
exactly. Except in
Except in
Connecticut
New York.
now.
Right.
Yeah, New York.
I said, you got a 1 in 3 chance of getting your head blown off to rob a house out here.
Right.
I said, that's why nobody steals. In the city,
Nice, yeah.
that's where
Right.
they get robbed all the time.
And I've seen, I saw an interesting YouTube video a few weeks ago about the situation in rural England. One guy is actually in jail for a long sentence because he was defending his home with a gun, which was illegal, against people who had repeatedly tried to break in. And that's what people like Andrew Cuomo want. And that's why, again, people should join Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership on Facebook.
And you can be a Christian, too, to join that?
Everyone's invited.
Everybody's
invited. We'll even let Muslims in, unless they're trolls.
And you also, besides running all these different organizations, before we get into this, I want to get into the Beck thing. You're also an expert on sports trivia.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert on sports trivia. I follow pro baseball and Major League Baseball and pro football fairly enthusiastically, but I wouldn't say I'm an all-around
Okay,
expert.
because we have an expert in the house.
I think the Seahawks are going to shock the world, if the world is even capable of being shocked over the next week. I think people are onto them. They're going to win by 30 points over Atlanta this week in Atlanta, and we're at the verge of a team that's going to be a dynasty like the New England Patriots.
Why do you think that?
You want an honest answer?
Yeah.
I love Pete Carroll as coach. He, you just look at this guy. You can sometimes size up people's faces.
USC did an amazing job.
He wasn't that great a coach for New England or the New York Jets, but I see a winner. I see a guy whose players will do everything, and we've had the opposite of that in Philadelphia under Andy Reid and a bad ownership. And their quarterback is such a winner that They signed the biggest free agent quarterback in the offseason, Matt Flynn, who did great for Green Bay as a backup. And this guy, Russell Wilson, is, has a chip on his shoulder. He's a great guy, but he was told he's only at best a third-round pick because he's 5'10". And everything I've heard about him is people love him in a way that they love playing for Joe Montana. You could say Dan Marino was a winner, but he never won the Super Bowl. But It was really a lot of technical skills. Peyton Manning's great, but it's a lot of his cerebral things and just the technical aspect. The guy just has it in a way I have not seen any quarterback. And they have a great defense. And Marshawn Lynch is a beast at running back there. And I can't think of another team in history, maybe the '85 Bears, that dominated the last 6 weeks of a season the way the Seahawks did. Their margin of victory over 3 games, one of which was against a good team, Arizona was having a bad year, was bigger than any team in a 3-game period since, I think, 1930, and they crushed the 49ers, who were many considered the best team in football. I think they're going all the way.
Kenny, what do you think?
He's jumping up. He's listening to everything.
Go Seahawks. And then the Eagles are going to hire their defensive coordinator.
In road games, not likely.
Well, they did okay against Washington last week. I guess the RG3 star has fallen, but
when is the game?
They did okay against a one-legged quarterback.
That's true, but and a coach with who gave up about 80 IQ points in that game. But no, I think they're the team to beat. New England was on the road a lot in 2001 too, don't you think?
I'm trying to remember. As I recall, the Tuck Rule game was in New England, so they would have had at least through the divisional round, and I'm trying to remember who they played. Oh, the AFC title game was actually the Tuck Rule game. So
No. That was
they weren't on the road
Tuck Rule game was the first round in New England, and they sort of slipped up on everyone, won their last 9 games of the season, or something like 11-5. But then the NFC Championship was in Pittsburgh. Just seems like this team has all the makings.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the Bledsoe game.
Yeah.
No, I don't see something similar to the Seahawks. They're going to have to show it to me with that franchise's history on the road. It's just miserable.
All right, well, there we have. Okay, let's CJ, take notes on this. We're going to see if it's a Seahawks.
I want to add one thing, and it has to happen this year because hopefully the Philadelphia Eagles are going to sign their defensive coordinator to coach the team.
All right, well, we'll see. But you mentioned Chicago, the Chicago '85 team.
Yeah, that's the greatest sports team I've ever seen in my life, except for maybe the '86 Mets.
Well, I was at.
Oh my gosh.
They were great. I'm a Phillies fan.
No. I'm saying, oh my gosh, because people had to go to bed for 3 weeks after that series.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But, in terms
goodness.
of swagger, and the 2004 Eagles started to have it at the beginning of the season. They reminded me.
I was at the '85 Bear game in Miami at the Orange Bowl.
Wow. That
I was
awesome.
there.
Wow.
It was the noisiest game ever. And we stood for the whole game because
driving people what that is.
Driving down, 1985, it was the Bears, who were the Super Bowl champs that year, playing Miami, Marino. And what struck me as we were driving down from Palm Beach to the stadium, everybody had signs in their cars, 11-1, right? Because the Bears were 11-0. It's going to be 11-1, 11-1, 11-1.
Well, remind your national audience why the significance of Miami is why it would be interesting for Miami to beat them as opposed to Buffalo or some.
Oh, because of the undefeated season in '72, yeah. But Refrigerator, William, the fridge.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he scored a touchdown in that game, and
that's right.
It was an amazing game, and Miami won. And I've been to a lot of Miami games with Marino, and usually walking out, going, oh, Jets, Jets, Jets. But that was a phenomenal game. That was one of those amazing games. Anyway, sports talk at TrentoVision. Once again, we got off into sports the other day. All right, let's go to this article I want you guys to weigh in on. Because what we're doing today, folks, Tom Trento with CJ, Mike and Mark are not here, but we have Paul and Adam. 2 guys that went on a road trip on a mission for God, leaving Philadelphia, coming down to visit some friends here, and have this kind of philosophical exploration of why they're here, where they're going, what is it all about, and the nexus, or I should say the pinnacle moment of the The coming of age of these two guys was on the border between North Carolina and South Carolina, a place called
I've been there before.
south of the border.
I've been there many
But
times.
Paul
I
has
always
it.
stop.
This was Paul's virginal moment at south of the border, and now you guys are here on the show, and we're discussing this and that and everything, all things Obama, but we're looking at culture too, because Adam has been very involved in cultural issues in the arts, entertainment. You're doing work on public policy and education with Beck, the Beck page. What's that all about?
The Daily Beck is basically a way for people to get Glenn Beck segments and also other stuff that I slip in there, including my own stuff. And we'll talk about that after the show, but I'm certainly willing to help promote your show a little bit better. I inherited it. I didn't start it. A great guy named Joe Seals started it. He went to work for Glenn Beck, and he asked me to take it over because he liked the stuff I did on my page, Adam Paxson.
No, I don't know him.
Which is, I've de-emphasized my own Facebook page, and you're welcome to friend me on Facebook or go to the Daily Beck. But I've de-emphasized.
Especially if you're over 40.
Yeah.
And a cougar.
No, hey, we're not touching that right now. We'll save my romantic life, hopefully, which will continue going as well as it has the last few days. We'll save that for your Valentine's Day show.
You have on your Beck page, I'm looking at your Beck page.
Right.
I am not Glenn. Just helping to spread Glenn Beck's message of common sense with the world. Watch Glenn's show nightly at watchglennbeck.com.
Yeah, the Joe wrote that.
Check out the Blaze and for news and information. And then you post a whole bunch of stuff here, and good place to get the kind of synthesis or the synopsis of what's going on for the day, right?
And I've been a little slow the last few days because I am in Florida and the weather has been glorious, so stick with me, guys. It will eventually get up there, but it's not the fastest these last few days. By the way, you mentioned the gift for God, that we were here on a mission for God. To be a little more specific, it was largely about the fifth commandment for me. I wanted to surprise my mother on my birthday, so honor my mother.
Honor your parents, yes. Very, very nice. All right, well, speaking of parents, here's what we have going on right now. In terms of the Western civilization, one of the criticisms we hear greatly from the Islamic world is the West is decadent, it's falling apart, it's dead, it's dying, it's immoral. Islam is the answer, the purity and morality of Islam. I forget about the deconstruction of those statements, but in terms of the critique of the West, good or bad?
What you mean as far as accurate?
Yeah, Islam's critique of the decadence of the West.
But I think the religious in America also share the same criticism. When we talk about, you're referring to the article where it talks about this narcissism of children thinking that they're all gifted. Every kid getting a trophy in school athletics. Every kid getting.
Everybody's a winner.
Everybody's a winner. All you have to do to be a winner is show up. That's it. And that's not the case. I mean, so I agree with them in their analysis, but their solution is where we differ. I don't want to live by a theocratical system of my own theology, let alone a theocratical system of an antithetical theology to mine. That's insane. We live in a society where we have a secular government, and it's not a religious-based government, even though the majority of people in this country are Christian. We don't have a Christian government.
No, we worked through all that stuff.
We do have a tyranny coming our way, though.
We got a tyranny coming, yeah, that's for sure.
Well, corruption.
Yeah, there's no.
It's interesting that you should say so, because where can corruption breed the most in a society where there's Here's the problem in our government that we face. The problem is you show up for small offices, maybe a small congressional district, the state senate, or something like this. It's easy to be a decent guy if you come from a rural area where maybe a race is $100,000 or $200,000 race. But when you get to these races, big congressional spots, $1 million, $2 million.
Alan West was $18 million.
$18 million for Congress.
But did he spend all that? I don't think
Doesn't matter. It's just the amount of money for one congressional seat. If you look at the governor's race, even in a small state, 5, 10 million. I mean, there's no way you can do that. And at the end of the day, when the envelope is pushed towards you, when the person makes that contribution, and he's making $100,000. We're not talking about $1,000 campaign contribution. We're talking about $100,000.
Right.
We're talking about $200,000.
Where they go on the special list, the VIP list.
Right.
I take your phone call list.
Yes.
And how are you then, without a strong sense of faith, when a guy says, look, I gave you $200,000, Bob, I want that contract for those new roads.
Yeah.
What are you going to say? My cousin can do this service for you, or I know somebody. And it's very difficult. And even the most ethical people faced with that fall. And that's what we
Well,
see.
let's look at the next generation right here. And you're on TrentoVision with Tom Trento at 4:33 in the afternoon. We're sort of letting everybody just kind of listen to our conversation. This is like the 5 on Fox. It's the 4 in Boca,
unscripted.
right? It's not our typical show, but
Well, we got 5. We got Kenny.
we got Kenny in there.
Yeah.
888-565-1470. Mike and Mark are not here. We haven't done the weather. We haven't done the traffic. We haven't done the commercials. We haven't done any of that stuff.
And are we, or are we just going to blow that
We'll
off
blow
today?
it off today. We'll just talk to these guys,
Okay.
and if
I
anybody
feel
else
badly
wants
if any of your listeners are stuck in traffic. I don't want to be blamed.
No,
for that,
no,
'cause
no.
I know out South
Our
Florida-
weather-
Have you ever heard our traffic report?
No.
our traffic
Yeah,
report
our traffic
is...
report is
Okay.
Yep, there's traffic out there.
there's
we could have
cars
used it on
Dixie-
995.
There's cars on Dixie Highway, north and south.
Yeah, our traffic report is not that helpful. Let me put it that way. And our weather report is the weather inside here usually.
You need to be gifted these days to excel in our educational system.
Oh man.
I mean, I'm a father of 3, right? So I have
It's like the young pioneers.
I have a daughter 16, I have a daughter 12, and a daughter 6. I mean, this is just brutal out here in these schools. I mean, what they spend more than half the day basically propagandizing your children of things that are absolutely insane. And the amount of time that's actually, my wife spends more time homeschooling and deprogramming my kids what they're learning in school. They actually have to come home and spend hours.
Are they in Center City? They go there or outside of there? It's a public school system.
My one daughter's homeschooled. My other daughter is in a charter school, and one daughter is in a private school. So I have exposure to all
whole
vehicles.
All right, listen to this. What we're looking at is the building of the foundation of those guys to whom we're handing the baton, okay? Keith Abloh wrote this he's a psychologist. He's on Fox quite a bit. He said that this new study has been released for over the past 47 years. This year they did it again. 9 million young adults, high school, college kids primarily. It reveals that college students are more likely than ever to call themselves gifted and driven to succeed. Oh yes, I'm driven to succeed, I'm gifted, though their test scores and time spent studying are decreasing. Well, a psychologist, Jean Twige, says, I want you guys to comment on this. He says that the study shows the tendency toward narcissism in students is up 30% in the last 30-odd years. This data is not unexpected. I've been writing a great deal over the past few years about the toxic psychological impact of media and technology on children, adolescents, and young adults, particularly as it regards to them turning into celebrities, the equivalent of lead actors in their own fictionalized life stories.
Here's my immediate reaction to that, and keep in mind that
Wait, hang on one second.
Okay.
With this next sentence. On Facebook, and you're a Facebook guy,
right.
young people can fool themselves into thinking they have hundreds of thousands of friends.
Well, if you have hundreds of thousands, you're doing something right. That's a lot.
Hundreds or thousands.
Oh, okay.
Hundreds or thousands of friends. They can delete unflattering comments. They can block anyone who disagrees with them or pokes holes in their inflated self-esteem. They can choose to show the world only flattering, sexy, or funny photographs of themselves. Dozens of albums full, by the way. Speak in pithy short posts and publicly connect to movie stars and professional athletes and musicians they like.
I have a lot to say about that.
Delusioned narcissists.
Well, I have a lot to say. I don't think the problem is that people want attention, want to...
You're defending Facebook?
Yeah, because it's an excellent means. I have probably the overwhelming majority of my, quote, friends, and certainly people who like my page, appreciate the work I do, and
What's it take to become your friend?
You send me a friend request and don't seem like you're weird or something. I mean, that's... Well, I mean, people read it. It's not...
Have you turned down any friends?
Yeah, if people seem really creepy or something, or
How many
or
people
they're liberals
have you
or something.
turned down?
I don't know. But let me make my point.
No.
The issue.
Any cougars, by the way?
No, the issue. I'm not a single guy. Let's keep that in mind, Paul. We'll say that for Valentine's Day. The issue isn't that people want attention, that they want to be appreciated for what they do. The problem, I think, all around, is that there's no one saying, you suck. You're really not that good at this. I mean, everyone wants to be a star, and I don't have a problem with narcissism if I deal with a certain actress I know on Broadway.
She's a problem with narcissism?
Not if it's a professional actress on Broadway. I want a healthy ego in my actresses on Broadway.
There's a difference between a healthy ego and a narcissist.
I know, but I'm saying not a narcissist. I would be wondering about someone going into that career who is a little too humble. My nephew is a great young actor, 11, and he's a little bit of a drama queen. He's dramatic. I mean, not necessarily a narcissist, but if you're a writer, if you're a performer,
let's define.
I don't know what definition you're using.
Well,
I mean, not psychological, but I don't think the article you mentioned is using. I think people simply want people to see their writing on Facebook.
I think they mean it in the true psychological sense.
But if they're not, if all they're doing,
Obama psychological.
Well, if all they're doing is posting pictures of themselves on Facebook or writing something and hoping their friends read it, I don't think that's narcissistic. That's simply having interactions with people. I think if someone's a psychopath about it, that's different. But if you're actually doing good stuff,
we're talking about a whole culture that is completely divorced from reality.
Let me throw out a definition.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 39 minutes past 4 o'clock on the Narcissism Hour here on TrentoVision. We're looking into a narcissistic personality disorder, and we're looking at an article that was recently written where Dr. Keith Abloh basically says that this next generation is becoming delusional narcissists. Here's the definition of narcissistic personality disorder. It's a personality disorder in which the individual is described as being excessively preoccupied with issues of personal adequacy, power, prestige, and vanity. This condition affects 1% of the population. And then it goes on to other stuff. So preoccupation with personal adequacy, power, prestige, and vanity.
Yeah,
Does that help?
I think, look, I probably at one point in time, probably in the same age group, would have been diagnosed as a narcissistic person. The problem is there's probably certain things about having focus on those issues that can be very good. But the problem is that how destructive in nature it is. If we think that we're the center of the universe, which is part of the narrative that we hear coming out of the mainstream media, you really need to be, you need to focus, do you. You hear the kids saying, I got to do me. Is a very common thing.
I got to do me. No, I haven't heard that.
You haven't heard that?
No.
Oh, that's. Oh yeah, I'm doing me. You do you, I do me.
Oh, okay.
You do you, I do me. I mean, it's all about So we're talking about this selfish and self-centered mentality. And the problem is, if we look at addictions, or we look at all the kind of self-destructive behaviors that happen in society, whether it be your drinking, your bulimia, your drug and alcohol.
Who's what?
They all come from that sort of.
Is that over there?
Sorry about that.
Oh no, that's okay.
They all come from this sort of same mentality, and again, it's devastating to a society as a whole. Because if you're thinking only about yourself, I mean, look, we started out this conversation and we talked about a mission from God, right? What's the central theme of Judeo-Christianity? It's the absence of self-centeredness. It's selflessness, right? Doing for other people. We're not teaching that in any of our schools. There's no religion. There's no ethics, religion, or principles like that. So children are growing up thinking, I am the Almighty. I'm the most important thing in this. I'm the star of this opera.
Well, let's continue with the article. Using Twitter. So now what the doctor's doing is he's taking the social media components and basically saying there's a deadly dark side to them. Using Twitter, young people can pretend they are worth following as though they have real life fans, when all that is really happening is the mutual fawning of false love and false fame. Using computer games, our sons and daughters can pretend they're Olympians, Formula One divers, rock stars, or sharpshooters. And while they can turn off their Wii or Xbox machines, remember they are really in dens and playrooms on side streets and in triple-deckers around America. That is, after their hearts have raced and their heads have swelled with false prize for being something they are not.
I want to mention one other article that came out today, in fact, in the New York Times.
Well, what do you think about that first?
I think it's true to some extent, but I think there's a big distinction between video games and people who are performing and who are writing something on Facebook. I mean,
he goes on to
that's
say,
fantasy versus wanting attention for something you've accomplished. I think that's a big difference.
He goes on to say, these are psychological drugs of the 21st century, and they're getting our sons and daughters very sick indeed.
Maybe, but also probably it's just healthier to, there might have been a kid at a farm in 1940 dreaming he was a professional baseball player, and he's getting exercise and fresh air doing that, but you don't really think of that as narcissistic, but in a way it's a fantasy world just like that.
Well, he goes into that as if to keep up with the unreality of media and technology and a dizzying paroxysm of self-aggrandizing hype. Town sports leagues across the country hand out ribbons and trophies to losing teams. Schools inflate grades. Energy drinks in giant colorful cans take over the soft drink market, and psychiatrists hand out Adderall like candy.
And Islam and Muslims think they're holy warriors because all they're doing is gang raping some girl who's not in a burqa.
We better get a plan together to combat this great epidemic as it takes shape, he goes on to say.
Did you have a snack during the break?
Yeah.
It will be hardest to defeat. So he's making some very, very good points here. What was your article?
I was going to say, you want an article that will explain this so much better, not to disrespect the article that you just mentioned, which makes some good points. I don't know who this psychologist is, but there's an article a friend of mine who's not even a conservative showed me earlier as just the most hilarious thing he's ever seen, and I think it was written in a tongue-in-cheek way. It was in the New York Times, of all things, by an author called Michael Schulman. The title is Generation LGBTQIA, and the only thing I will say is it has to be read to believe. It's amazing. I think the article was written in a somewhat...
What's the gist of it? I mean, you can't talk about it?
Well, I just can't do it justice. It's amazing. The quotes in here. I'll find a quote in 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I see it right here. Well, here's what we're doing. At 44 minutes past the hour, we're trying to get a handle on where today's generation kids, college kids, are going. Why is that so important? We got an Islamic threat coming out from all over the place. We have a hardcore leftist movement in the United States of America joining with these foreign threats. We have the academy. We've lost the academy. We've lost the universities. If you've been on any universities lately, they're all, I mean, the most popular professors on many of the campuses are the Marxists, who are...
well, on most campuses, it's a requirement to become a professor that you need to be a Marxist.
Yeah, well, my wife works in a university. First off, it's not only is the administration leftists, they're the ones who control the hiring, the firing, everything. I mean, if they even know that she's conservative, she has to work under her maiden name as not to be fired. I mean, it's really that.
Well, we had a lawsuit. We dealt with the other day of a Christian woman who wrote an article on her own time, wrote a response. Crystal Dixon.
I mean, she has people who are, as we talk about,
was fired from her
GLBT.
University job.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
For writing a letter as an individual, which did not identify, in which she didn't identify herself as an employee of the University of Toledo, and nevertheless somebody.
Yeah, but
it was a letter to the editor of the newspaper. My wife finally got justice this year. Because after her co-workers had basically campaigned out of the office for Obama,
right, exactly.
They found out that they had reduced many of their hours to under 40 hours, so they became part-timers, not to have to pay the penalty for the Obamacare.
Yeah,
that was a real shock. So when the guy came to complain to her, a guy in a same-sex relationship came to complain to her about it. She said, well, that's the candidate you endorsed. Did you check any of his policies out before you supported him?
Ooh, she said that to somebody?
Yeah, my wife's very, demure. She's not the kind of person that would say that. But
that went right over the person's head. They couldn't compute what that meant. Yeah. Did you check out? But Adam has something for us. What do you have?
Okay, well, we were talking about narcissism in this article in the New York Times, which, do you have the name up there still? I scrolled lower on my iPod.
iPhone. Oh, no, different one there. There it is. The guy who wrote it, you mean?
Yeah, what's the name of it, just for your audience?
Okay. It is Generation LGBTQIA, University of Pennsylvania freshman Michael Schulman.
Okay, and it's written in a way that, I don't know, hopefully he was being tongue-in-cheek, but you want narcissism in the context of just degenerate freaks who probably think they're better than the rest of you because they're at an Ivy League school, because it's largely about Penn students, though there's something about University of Missouri at Kansas City. But, I mean, it's amazing. We're talking about narcissism that these people seem to want to have for being different. It's almost like they want to be different in some way, so they make themselves sexually deviant and just bizarre in the most bizarre way. And this article is just one narcissistic quote in a way that goes well beyond an actress wanting you to see her show. I mean, here's a quote in here, and this is not doing justice because in the totality, it really has to be read to be believed. While I didn't know that I liked girls, I didn't know that I was one, Britt said. Sometimes she would leave the house in a dress and feel uncomfortable, as if she were wearing a Halloween costume. Other days she felt fine. She wasn't trapped in the wrong body, as the cliche has it. She just didn't know what body she wanted. When Kate told her about the term bigender, it clicked instantly. I knew what it was before I knew what it was, Britt says. And then the article goes on to talk about how certain terms are insufficient, how what was once LGBT now has like 12 different letters that are part of the acronym or whatever. And it's just amazing how much attention these people want and the like little pseudo issues they're coming. And I just can't imagine what someone in Saudi Arabia is thinking reading this.
Well, I think one thing you'll find in common with all these people, if you looked for a common denominator, you would find that they're all still being supported by their parents and they probably don't have jobs.
Well, they're college students. I mean, they don't. Yeah. They don't.
A lot of people
have these
used to have to work while they were in college. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so how do we fix all this stuff? Because, I'm reading some of this stuff now.
No,
how do we fix this? How do we save Western civilization?
Yeah, first off, the article that you originally quoted, was really talking about more of a symptom than as far as the underlying illness, because what it was saying is that this technology that we have, the video games, the Facebook, the social networkings, cause and effect. The real cause isn't the fact that this is just exacerbating the problem. The underlying problem is society. What is a society ill? The society ill is that we've moved so far away from religious, spiritual, however you want to define it, underpinnings, that everybody's running on their own sort of self-will. The most bizarre or the biggest freak show that you could possibly be now gets you some level of recognition.
Yep.
It gets you approval, and everybody else is in the wrong. If they not only do they have to approve it, but they have to applaud it.
Mm-hmm. And under Obama, not only do they have to applaud it, they have to fund it.
They're racists, they're bigots, they're something phobes.
Well, this is one of the biggest problems that we had starting back when we switched off the welfare rolls, where everybody that was collecting welfare found the magical cure was now they were bipolar. So what we found was, if you don't want to work and you're lazy, just say that you're mentally ill. And, we've got this society where we've got so many people that have been raised to prominence, I'm not talking about functioning in society, raised to prominence, elevated in society, that 30, 40 years ago would be institutionalized. Okay?
Well, what we've done in the last 30 to 40 years is a deliberate defining down of what is deviant. And
all right, but how do we fix this?
Well, give
me a cure.
I think look, Tom, if you don't really want to know my real solution,
www.bejewish.org.
Well, that's one solution. What happened if we look at World War II? I don't think the Brits were going to really do much in World War II until they were attacked. Churchill all of a sudden grew a spine when the bombs were landing. You're talking about this whole Islamicization of America. Look, sadly, we're going to at some point, and I don't want to invite it, but we need another 9/11. I mean, if it doesn't happen, people don't see the threat unless the threat is immediately on their face. When there's body bags and casualties, that's when people recognize it.
How come the first 9/11 didn't do it?
Because I think that Bush did too good a job.
Because we went to war and it was too easy for us. We never had to feel like we were at war. There was nothing expected of us. When we looked for leadership as a country, if you think about it, what happened that Christmas right after 9/11?
The economic recovery was so fast.
What
and so
happened
quick
at Christmas?
That nobody felt it.
Did we have to make a sacrifice, or were we told by our government, by our president, if you really want to do something good for this country, go shopping?
Absolutely.
Okay? When you're told to go shopping when you're fighting a two-front war, where do you go from there?
I got to add one thing. The media knew what it was doing. They knew they couldn't get their agenda in the first few days, but they slowly slipped in these attacks. The biggest problem, what was the biggest problem in the days after 9/11? Potential Islamophobic violence. And
That's right.
How much did we hear about some Sikh? The worst thing, MTV was in on it. It was, God forbid, the message was, don't say anything bad about Islam.
The message
Bush was part of that,
yeah,
too. I'm a
and the
Republican,
message
but Bush was part of that.
the message was right away that we ourselves did something to bring it on.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't, not to get into conspiracy theory or anything like that, but we have to understand that the fundamental crust of this is you got to follow the money. And in all pragmatic, who's producing the oil that we consume in this country? It's all coming from Arab states. And at some point, you look at the Republican Party has a relationship through Carlyle with Saudi Arabia, and Democrats have a fundamental relationship with Iran. So it's either you're either rooting for the Mets or the Giants at some point, but both teams are coming out of New York. It's sad.
New Jersey, maybe.
Yeah, whatever, but it's two heads of the same thing.
And so maybe what we need is a third party who lets us drill on our own land and our own offshore, so that we don't have to go for Saudi Arabia.
Well, I would have personally preferred the reformation of the Republican Party, that the Tea Party would have reformed the Republican Party from within. It didn't happen.
This is our talk on the show tomorrow, by the way, which is really good. If you're in town, you're welcome.
In 2010, it was happening. There's no question that all the candidates that were put forward in 2010 were guys that were Republican, and the Republican Party as a whole moved back to the right. In 2012, the narrative was put out, hey, we must put forward a centrist Republican that's going to be broad-based appeal, and magically Mitt Romney, who's also conveniently very well self-funded because he's a $250 million. And sadly, this is the point I made earlier, a lot of these Tea Party candidates, the fact is they're not well-funded.
Let's do this. We're gonna dive into a little bit of what you're gonna do tomorrow.
Okay.
Just to scratch the surface. These
so
guys
I don't have to totally make it up as I go along.
These guys are very politically involved. We're gonna talk about the Tea Party. Can you stay a little bit longer after the break?
Yeah, he just needs to take a 20-minute break, and then you can walk back in.
I'll step out in 10
You do that, and then you can hang around.
Well, you can step out now because we're going to go.
Well, hang on one second.
Yeah, hang on one
We're gonna dive into the third party, Tea Party, and then I got a couple of issues here. One in Jerusalem, one in out of Al Jazeera, one out of something in Fox. I want to run by all of you for your input.
All of us.
Joe Biden on guns, and whether or not Chuck Hagel is indicating a shift toward Iran. And we'll look at Hillary Clinton, too. A couple of different things. So stay tuned. Tom Trento with his whole crew. The Philly crew today. Cheesesteaks for everybody. Kosher cheesesteaks after the show. Bye.
Vegan ones, if you prefer.
How about if I step out for like 20 minutes?
Thanks for tuning in to TrentoVision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Tom Trento can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom@trentovision.tv. And tune in again weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Did you work with them? Did you work with AFP?